Sniper Side here with John at TacCom and David Tubb. We're going to talk about his new Charlie unit, a prism for the rifle scope to let you shoot beyond extended ranges. So we have John and David here, going to let them explain the unit and how it's being used at the King of 2 Mile match here, as well as how it's being used around the world today. John?
Frank, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity of showing this piece. As noted, it is within reason a simple prism. And what this allows any operator to do is to take any scope. It could be a new Night Force, new Vortex, it could be a scope from 1970, and all of a sudden allow that shooter to add large amounts of mil or MOA to the system. The system's currently set up at 20. We will, and if Dave's scope is sitting here at 0, if I go like this, he just added 20 mil, and now it's also ballistically works with your computer at 20 mil. And we have built units at 40, 50, 60, and 100 mil. Actually, I have an operating rifle here right now that we're demoing that next week that unit leaves for a 100 mil unit. 2 of them are actually next week for if people are attempting to do a long range record shot. And to your point, how practical? But again, 20 years ago, 2,000 yards wasn't practical. It was not doable. 10 years ago, 3,000 yards weren't. Today, 2 mile hit was done in competition within a limited number of shots, not a bang, bang, bang. So it is a doable situation.
Same shot. Same hit.
What we're doing here is allowing a person to use a scope without, and stay on their cheek, stay on their base, not change the configuration. Absolutely run it. I work with David because David is a perfectionist, he's critical, and he breaks down components to basic operations. So I'm going to let David has been using our items, so I'll let him talk a little bit about what he has done.
I've had this for several months now, and as John said, the idea is the option you've got is say an Ivy base, and it tilts the scope in this direction, so you see the barrel. You have to raise your cheek piece. When I'm using the unit, obviously there's my cheek piece with or without the unit on. And I like it because this scope has, let's say, 20-25 mils of vertical adjustment. And so if I want to shoot a shot at, say, 2,500 yards, then let's assume that I could dial up to that and shoot it. But let's say I want to go further, so I could actually sight in at 2,500 yards and know that I need to come up 22 mils in order for me to shoot something further. And so let's say 3,000 yards. So at that point in time, I could put the Charlie unit on, has a couple of screws that hold it on, and then I would dial back down from where I was. Let's say I was up 20 mils, and then I have made a correction at that point, and then I fine tune it by either coming up or down to get it zeroed at 3,000 yards. Depending on how this is adjusted, is obviously is the distance you shoot, but it repeats itself so easily. It just works from all my testing. It repeats itself just without, it's impeccable, let's say that. So
I was aware of this at SHOT, and like I said, I've been following its progress, and I know it's being used around the world, and it's one of those products that lives up to the advertisement, and so it keeps you in your current configuration, but is multiplying the adjustments of your scope exponentially, 20, 40, 60, 100, you said. So that's what's allowing these guys to get 80 mils on a target.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also and David is hypercritical, which is good for our input, but the unit is actually very, very forgiving. I can actually tilt this unit degrees and barely move 1/10 of a mil on my target. I can take it and twist it this way, degrees, and have the same result, 1/10 or so mil. So it is very forgiving for mount. Mounting it is sensitive, can't. But a simple field mount is level out the platform, you level out your scope. I drop a level here, that's my first rough level. Then you're going to your typical methods you use for optical plumb lines and so on, and you walk the line, run the turret, When you're square and plumb, you're
So
set.
it's just like leveling your scope. There's
Yes,
no
it is.
extra steps, no extra work. You don't need a PhD to use it.
No.
Level it with a plumb, pop it on the rifle, and you've got your configured amount of.
Right, it's just like you got an extra 20 mils of vertical component in your elevation knobs, basically what it works out to be.
And again, that's such a weak link. Adding so much base to it and breaking that cheek weld and breaking your position, where this keeping you back on the rifle, it's bringing the human factor back in. Marksmanship's important.
Yes.
And now you're not compromising it with an XLR bench rest rifle.
Yes.
That's right, yeah. You know, as you know, most of the rifles we talked about that are using these, or a lot of them, they're very heavy, you know. But this thing, this setup is a, 17, 18 pound rifle, and shooting a 375 bullet at 2900, and the unit holds up very, very well. And of course you've got a little bit of recoil, but that's the whole concept. You want to be able to take this rifle with you.
Right. Perfect.
So as a purchaser, you can purchase it either as a rail mount or a scope mount. With the scope mount, we just need to know your exact use for a scope and the shade that's used, because we'll integrate the shade mount to the scope. But once you put this unit on here, this unit's set at 20 mil. I could walk it down in one of my rifles right now, and it will be 20 mil. I could put it on my other rifle, it's 20 mil. I could take it all the way down the other end, and it is 20 mil. So it's internal to itself. So if a person purchases this, he could have multiple scopes just by the adapters or a rail mount. He needs one unit. He can go right down the
And
line.
it's not more than the scope.
Exactly.
No, that's right.
Don't quote me, but I believe on your site, 1,500 retail.
Right. That's with all the mounting components.
Right.
And of course, once this is set, this is never going to change.
Yep.
It's done. And so you carry it around, and you could actually figure out, I'm expecting him to come out with a little 4 magnet mount sunshade, because you need a sunshade sometimes.
Yes,
you could,
definitely, especially here.
That's right. Yeah, you can tell he's got a little sunscreen on.
Yeah, I got a little. I thought I had bacon on my.
It's kind of hot
last
here.
night.
Yeah, I dumped my cowboy hat for my ball cap so I could do it. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it going through this. This is what's changing the game, not only here at the King of 2 Mile, but out in the real world. It's a mechanical, practical upgrade to your system, and I appreciate that.
Yes, it is.
You bet.
And to your point, there is absolute video proof of the 4,000 plus yard hits within a very limited number of shots being fired. So we are learning how to extend that range.
Yep.
And that's what we look forward to, and that's what we're here for, is pushing that envelope to new levels.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thanks both of you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Rest of
Thank
the
you,
day.
Frank.
You bet.
Target.
Roger.
10. 5. Commence fire.
Favor right.